Hi, welcome to Introduction to ASP.NET Web Forms. This is the introduction part of this course, and this is the second edition of the material of this course. My name is Farhad Eftekhari, and I'm the teacher of this course. Here are the course's links where you can find the material like slides, tutorial videos, assignments, and files which are related to this course. And here are some typographical conventions that we use during this course, and at the bottom of our slides, each of them means something, so make sure to get familiar with them and try to use them when you encounter them. And here is also the difficulty level indicator from easy material to the hard material. It's up to the students how high they want to jump in this course and how much they want to learn. I recommend you to cover all the material of this course, but it's up to you if you want to just get familiar with the material or try to use them on your projects or somewhere. And here is also the slides framework where you can see what are the definitions of each object in these slides. Here's the title of the slides, difficulty indicator, slide number, and here's also the code that if you enter instead of this code here in this URL and link, you will be redirected to the exact part of the tutorial video of that certain slide. Here also the content will be placed and those icons that I described, and course name and section name. So the content of this introduction part is the following content. What is the target of this course? What do we need to host our projects? Solutions for hosting our projects? The importance of having a back-end developing skills for a software engineer? Comparison between static and dynamic projects? How ASP.NET works? What are the characteristics of ASP.NET? Comparison between web application and a website? Description about the ASP.NET files and folders, and how to make your first ASP.NET project, and getting familiar with the Visual Studio environment. So our approach in this course is first we're gonna get familiar with the logic, how to host our project, the requirements, dynamic applications, web applications, get introduced to .NET framework and IIS or Internet Information Service, and also get familiar and introduced to ASP.NET, introduction, characteristic of ASP.NET, different project types, file types and folders, and then try to work with Visual Studio, how to install it, get familiar with the user interface and the tools related to web developing. And then we're going to work with ASP.NET, we're going to work with server controls, controls properties, we're going to get familiar with them and how to work with them. And then we're going to get the best out of ASP.NET by introducing to namespaces, master pages, user controls, lifecycle in ASP.NET, and managing a state, and then a web config file. And finally, we're going to get to know about some tips regarding to exception handling, debugging, and tracing, and then naming tips and performance tips in ASP.NET. So by definition, ASP stands for Active Server Pages. That's the first lesson of this course. So let's see what is the target of this course. Here is different technologies and framework, programs or services or features which is in this framework of .NET framework. And as you can see, there are so many fields that you can get to know and learn about. But in this course, we primary and solely gonna work with this ASP.NET part, which has been included in .NET Framework 2, and then it got improved a little bit, but the other fields are not the target of this course, and they can have their own courses. So you have to know that the target of this course is this part in this whole .NET Framework uh, environment. And what is not the target of this course? All of these practical subjects. I recommend you after this course, you try to find out more about them. You definitely need them if you want to create state of the art and like new projects. They can be really useful for your projects. Once you get to know about the fundamental of ASP.NET, then those are the places that you can try to gain more knowledge in and try to be a better developer to create projects in ASP.NET and .NET Framework environment. So let's talk about that. What do we need to host our projects in this course? What type of file formats and services are we looking for when we want to host our projects? I want you to think for yourself, or if you have a pair, try to discuss it and search online to see what are the file formats that you're looking for when you want to host a project or application online. I'm not gonna be quiet and wait, so you can be in charge and control of this video. You can pause it whenever you want. I will start right away after I ask something, not to waste your time and my time. So you can be in charge. So I will start right away. Here are the different type of files that you want to host if you want to host a project online. So there are some static files like images, some design files or JavaScript files. We want to host them, and also sometimes we are running scripts in different kind of technologies and languages like .NET technologies, which is the target of this course. And if you're using another technologies like PHP, Python, they have different file extensions, and sometimes we want to store some information online. And we are using text files, XML files, or database files in order to store information. So the target of this course, as I mentioned, is this part that you want to run some scripts in order to host our applications. And there are different solutions to host our project. So I would like you to also search for yourself to see what are the type of solutions that we can use in order to host our projects with you or with your pair. And if you ever done that before, then it's gonna be even better. You're already familiar with how to use like different solutions to host our project. So here are the list of different type of solutions in order to host our projects. We can use university servers if you're a university student. Probably your university have so many servers and they're running some kind of technologies there that you can use. You can use your local PC and use a static IP in order to make your PC or laptop as a server and then host your project there. Or you can get a hosting plan and use a web hosting company and then upload your project files there. Or you use a dedicated server, or finally the new solution which is now being more popular is now cloud services. So if you are using a university server to host your project there are some cons and pros and requirements for this solution. First of all, you have to make university agree to host your project, and then you have to find out what are the type of technologies they install on their university servers in order to run the projects in. Uh, well, it's a free solution for students, so it's very good for testing. And the cons are also there are limited resources and limited services and limited ability to handle high traffic levels. And if you want to run ASP.NET, you have to make sure that they have a Windows server and they already installed .NET Framework in them in order to be ready to host your projects there. The other solution is using your PC and then assign a static IP. You have to have a high-speed internet connection. If you're living in Finland, that's not a problem because most of the people now have access to high-speed internet connection. It's a cheap solution. It's easy to upgrade, easy to maintain, and because the PC is there for you to use. No need for remote connection because it's there for you to install or do whatever customization or administration you're looking for. It's suitable for testing if you want to test something, definitely. And the cons are also it always has to be on. Uh, if you turn off your PC, laptop, computer, the services will not be available. Well, there are definitely security concerns. You have to take that in measurement and like consider that. Definitely power usage costs. Like I said, the PC has to be always on, and definitely there are limited ability to handle high traffic levels because you have limited resources like your computer's RAM or CPU or internet connection. And also, if you want to run ASP.NET projects, you have to make sure that you have a Windows operating system and you already installed .NET Framework there. The other solution is web hosting companies, and you have to get a plan from them. You have to see based on the features they are providing for you, if they are supporting ASP.NET, .NET Framework, what kind of version and edition of ASP.NET they are supporting. Mostly they support up to the highest level, and then you have to select the version of the .NET Framework you are already using on your projects on the plan control panel. If you talk to about this solution is, well, you have to find online from Google. They can easily be found online, and then it's an affordable solution. They are somehow cheap, and then you can select plans based on your needs, based on the amount of space you need or the database if you're using one, and some technologies you want to use on your applications, and then you can connect to your admin portal from anywhere. And the cons are also, well, cheap services in IT usually equal to cheap support and performance. And there are security concerns because all of these applications and projects that the customers of those companies are hosting are being hosted in a single server. And then there are limited ability to handle high traffic levels based on that fact, and also site performance can be affected by other sites on the same server as I described for you. The other solution is also getting a dedicated server. It is easier to customize if you already know how to install your applications there, but you have to take care of the licensing of your applications if you want to host your database or other technologies that they require some license to use. The performance is much better than web hosting companies, and also you can get a plan based on your needs and resources that you want to use. And the cons are also they're like expensive solutions compared to other solutions and require skills to maintain and run. And like I said, you need to provide license for some software. And finally, this solution, which is being more, the performance is up to you. You can anytime you can increase or decrease the resources that you're using. The uptime rate of those plans are usually very high, and they're easily customizable, but they're more expensive than the other solutions compared to them. And many of them also, when you want to have support services or ask for customer service to do something for you, they will charge you. So make sure to at first be familiar with the cost of using this solution. All right, now that you got familiar with all of these type of solutions for hosting your project, I would like you to discuss with your pair or think with yourself that comparing them and what are the benefits of them, what are the advantage and disadvantage of them when you want to compare them and the technologies you're looking for. Also, try to search online to see if you can find some plans for some of these solutions based on the technologies you're looking for, or the location of the server, or the support of your desired programming languages. Try to get more familiar with finding these solutions online. And always remember that for testing, try the cheaper solutions, and for publishing and releasing your application, try to come up with the ones that have better support performance compared to the other ones. Alright, now let's talk about the importance of having a back-end developing skills for a software engineer. First of all, it's a must-have knowledge, especially for back-end developers. When you are working in IT and you're a software engineer and you're a back-end developer. It's a really beneficial skills to have for job interviews if you go through these job applications for back-end developers, the requirements and the technologies. Obviously, they are looking for some kind of technologies that they want their developers to be familiar with and work with them on their projects. And it's going to make it much easier to work in a team, even if you are a front-end developer or business administrator, then you can understand their limitations when you are more familiar with the technologies they are using, where you have some kind of group discussions or something, and then it's much easier to work in that kind of teams and groups. And also, definitely, it helps you to have more realistic IT ideas. Just like an architect, when that person knows about the limitations of using some kind of material, then it's also exactly the same in IT. You may have very cool ideas in IT, but some of them may not be really easy or uh, well creatable somehow. So when you have these kind of skills, then even if you want to hire some people in order to work with you, when you want to validate your ideas, then if you're familiar with these technologies, then you will definitely have more realistic IT ideas. And you can also think about if there's any other benefits when you have this kind of knowledge as a backend developing skills for software engineer. And now I would like you to think and discuss with your pair, if you have one, that what is the difference between a static website and a dynamic website. So here's also a comparison between a static and dynamic website. Let's individually talk about them. So the advantage of having a static website is, well, they're really quick to develop and they are cheap to develop because there's no technologies, very fancy technologies required to create them, and they are really cheap to host because your web hosting server or whatever you're using doesn't need to install in like any fancy technologies. But there are also some disadvantage, like it requires web admin expertise to update site. You have to connect your like FTP protocol and just all the time copy and paste and replace all of these contents and change them with new contents and delete the old ones. And also the site will not be as useful as it is compared to dynamic websites for a user because uh, they change like uh, in a long time or something, and then the content in that way can get a little bit stagnant and it's harder to change the content. And as the dynamic applications or websites, the advantage are well, much more functional websites they're gonna be because you can change the content whenever you want and it's much easier to update them. And then new content always bring people back to the site and helps in the search engines when you're renewing your material and content of your website or application. And also it can work as a portal to allow staff or users to collaborate together and create content or modify the content of the website or application. Well, the disadvantage is like it's slower and more expensive to develop at first, so you need to have the skills of creating these dynamic websites or hire some people in order to do that. And the hosting plans are cost much more compared to the static ones because then you need to make sure that the technologies you're using is being installed and uh, easy to use on your web server or whatever you're using. Now let's see what is the web application. Any application that can be accessed by a browser can consider as a web application. And there are some characteristics and features of these web applications and some advantages for them. I would like you to discuss or think for yourself that what are the advantages of having these web applications over an operating system application which requires to be installed on your computer in order to be used. So to begin with, first of all, a web application doesn't require any installation. You just open your browser, you just type in whatever URL that web application has, and then it can be accessed with that website. So if you're using any mail server, like any online web application mail server or any kind of online services, you really have no idea how they made that and how they like install on their server or somewhere. You just type the URL and then the application is ready for you to use. And also, you don't need to update on your client's computers, because once you update your web application, then everyone who are connecting with these browsers and have access to using these browsers to access to your applications, then the version that they are using is updated one. And they're available anywhere, anytime, so you don't need to be worried about those software to be installed on your client's computer. You just update on your web application, and then from anywhere, whoever has access to internet and have these browsers, then they can access to your web application. And then they are platform independent. So all days, if you wanted to install these applications on people's computer, you need to be worried about what is the operating system and resources they are using. So you don't really need to worry about that anymore, as long as they have these browsers. And then there are definitely less environmental conflicts. You just need to be worried about the environmental of your web server and the technologies you have to install there, and then work with them. Definitely the cost of sale will be decreased when you just need to be worried about your web server. And then a specification of customers' PCs or smartphones, they're going to be lower because they just need to have some browsers in order to have access to your web server. And then the costs of support of your application are going to be lower, because there's going to be much less problems to deal with, and then definitely it's easier for the customers also to have access to your web server or web application. I would like you to search online and see what are the available technologies to use to build a web application. The most famous technologies to use to build a web application is the following list of technologies. Well, the topic of this course is ASP.NET, so here's the first one. Then you can also use PHP, Java, CGI, Ruby on Rails, Perl, Python, and there are many other technologies to use. You can also search online and compare their technologies and to see which one is like perfect for you based on the knowledge that you already may have, or your interest based on the technologies. And as you already know, ASP.NET is technology we are using on this course. So let's get familiar with .NET Framework. .NET Framework, as we write it with .NET and pronounce it like .NET, is a software framework developed by Microsoft company. It runs primarily on Microsoft Windows. It includes a large class library known as Framework Class Library, or FCL, and programs written for .NET Framework executes in a software environment and known as Common Language Runtime, or CLR. An application virtual machine that provides services such as security, memory management, and exception handling. FCL and CLR together constitutes .NET Framework. So that's the whole framework of this .NET Framework that you're going to get familiar with. And When you're using ASP.NET, you're using this .NET framework to build your applications and projects. To be more familiar with .NET Framework, here's also more description that FCL provides user interfaces, data accesses, database connectivity, cryptography, web application development, numeric algorithms, and network communications. Programmers produce software by combining their own source code with .NET Framework and other libraries. .NET Framework is intended to be used by most new applications. Created for the Windows platform, Microsoft also produces an integrated development environment largely for .NET software called Visual Studio. So, as you read here, there are so many libraries contained in .NET Framework that you can use. For instance, libraries to use with mail servers or working with data or connecting to databases. So you don't need to code them or develop them by yourself. They're already there for you to use, and you just combine your own codes with those libraries, and you execute your application or your project. And there's a very strong and powerful IDE created to work with .NET Framework and some other technologies. That is Visual Studio. That through this course we're gonna use that. And if we divide the parts that .NET Framework covers and the applications types, here are some console applications. You can use .NET Framework to develop Windows applications, web applications, and web services. And what do you think? Which one is the target of ASP.NET? Well, these two last one, web applications and web services, you use ASP.NET in order to create those kind of applications and services. So that's where ASP.NET comes handy. Now let's get familiar with IIS or Internet Information Service. Internet Information Service, formerly Internet Information Server, we used to call it, is an extensible web server created by Microsoft for use with Windows NT family. IIS supports HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, FTPS, SMTP, and NNTP. IIS has to be installed on web servers which run ASP.NET applications. So the servers, as you can remember in web hosting plans, that were able to run ASP.NET applications and projects, well, on them they previously installed IIS. And here is here's a figure that you can see that how IIS works. So the client sends its request to IIS, and then IIS processes that request, and if it needs to connect to database or do some actions, it does, and then send back a response to the client. ASP.NET is an open source server-side web application framework designed for web development to produce dynamic web pages. It was developed by Microsoft to allow programmers to build dynamic websites, web applications, and web services. ASP.NET was first released in January 2002 with version 1.0 of the .NET framework, and it is successor to Microsoft Active Server Pages or ASP technology. ASP.NET is built on the Common Language Runtime or CLR, allowing programmers to write ASP.NET code using any supported .NET language. And here is the release history of this ASP.NET technology that we are using. And the developer of ASP.NET, as we mentioned, is Microsoft, and you can write in your ASP.NET project in any .NET languages that .NET Framework supports, and operating system needs to be Microsoft Windows, and the final stable version was when we were recording this course, August 15, 2012, 4.5 version. And you're using version 4 for this ASP.NET Web Forms project. To find out how ASP.NET works, here's a simple figure that you can see, and you can more easily well, search online to find out more about this process. This is not the we're not gonna get very deeply through this topic, but To get more familiar with, first we are writing our code in whatever languages that you're familiar with and is compatible with .NET Framework. And then when we compile our project, the code is being sent to common language specification. And then based on the type of the project we have, whether it's ASP.NET Web Forms or Windows Forms, and we are using some components of ADO.NET or XML components or whatever libraries that we are using, then finally sent to this common language runtime to be executed and compiled. And then finally, operating system will be able to run that project files if we already installed .NET Framework previously on that operating system, Windows operating system. And there are some characteristic which is kind of unique for ASP.NET, and that makes those characteristic makes ASP.NET very powerful comparing to the classic edition of ASP, which used to be before 2002. There is code behind model characteristic, multiple languages, directives, user controls, custom controls, rendering techniques, state management, template engine, and directory structure, which later we're going to get more familiar with each of them. For code behind model, this is a very beneficial characteristic of ASP.NET. By using code behind, we are separating our design code with our developing code and back-end side of our project with front side of the project. So it's really practical, especially when you are working in a team and there are many people with different skills, back-end guys and front-end guys. So they are working with each other. So definitely they are not going to overlap their code with each other. And it's much easier to work with this feature when especially you're working in a team. So there are two separate files, page.aspx and page.aspx.cs. So this part is for back-end side and this file is for front-end side. So all the code which is related to the design part and the front-end part can be included in this file, and then the code that is usable for back-end side is going to be stored and written in this part of the file. And then we have multiple languages supported by .NET Framework. So in .NET Framework, you are able to write any of these very powerful and very useful languages to develop your applications. In this course, we're going to use C# as our examples of this course. And then we have directives in the ASP.NET. Directives specify settings that are used by the page and user control compilers when the compilers process ASP.NET Web Forms pages and user control files. So at the beginning of each file, whether it's like a page or master page or any other page that it has, we are using these directives. And as you got to read here, that somehow tell to the compiler that what type of thing it is. Like, is it a page? Is it a master page? User control? And later we're going to use many of them in our applications. And then we have user controls. User controls are encapsulations of sections of pages which are registered and used as controls in ASP.NET. So in a single page, you can put as many user control as you want, and then you can somehow modify and change the content of those user controls. And also we have custom controls. Unlike user controls, these controls do not have an ASCII markup file. Instead, all their code compiled into a dynamic link library or DLL file. Such custom controls can be used across multiple applications and Visual Studio projects. So once you created your custom controls, you're able to use it in your application or other applications and projects that you are using and working with. And also, rendering technique is kind of unique in ASP.NET comparing to the previous editions. There are different states of renderings that can be really practical and handy when you're in an advanced way working with your application. And also there's very powerful tools for state management in ASP.NET. You have view state, control state, hidden fields, cookies, query strings, application state, session state, and profile properties. Based on your applications and the need of your application, there are a variety of choices to use in order to have the management over state. The other feature and characteristics of ASP.NET which makes it very powerful, especially for designing, is this template engine characteristic and feature. You get to use master pages and you can create your website layout. And then for the other pages, you can use these layouts and put the contents in different pages. And then easily you can just modify the master page and all of these changes will be affected to the child pages. Later we will fully work with this feature. And also we have directory structure. In general, the ASP.NET directory structure can be determined by the developer's preference. Apart from a few reserved directory names, the site can span any number of directories. The structure is typically reflected directly in the URLs, although ASP.NET provides means for intercepting the request at any point during processing. The developer is not forced to funnel requests through a central application or front controller. So you can create as many directories as you want as you put here, and there are some directory names reserved for ASP.NET that later you will get familiar with them. In this table, you can see I fully describe for you what's the difference between a web application and website. Make sure to just get familiar with it and try to understand what's the difference almost between them and use them in your future projects. And to create your first ASP.NET project, here is the steps that you need to follow. First, you need to open Visual Studio 2013, and then from Files, select New Projects, and then from Templates, if you're using Visual C Sharp, use Visual C Sharp or any other languages that you are familiar with, if you previously worked with any, and then select ASP.NET Web Application, and then type your application's name, location, and solution name. And then finally make sure to select .NET Framework version 4 and then press OK. We're going to go through it together and make sure that you're able to create a project. Alright, so now first we open Visual Studio 2013. I installed the Ultimate version, but whatever additional version you have is fine. And from File section, you select New Project. And then the whole list of these templates gonna come up. So we select Visual C Sharp and then Web. Well, here the empty ASP.NET project is not here, so we select this Visual Studio 2012 and we select this ASP.NET empty web application and make sure to select .NET Framework 4 and you can select name and also location and solution name of your application and project. The reason that we select this empty web application is that we want it to be empty, not contain some pre-created files in our application. And then press OK, and then after a while your project will be ready. Yeah. So you created your first ASP.NET project. Congratulations. And here is the full list for file types in ASP.NET. As you can see here, we have web form, which the extension is ASPX. We have code behind that based on the programming language you're using, extension can be different. We have master pages that the extension would be .master. Web user controls, ASP6, HTML page, HTML or HTML. If you're using CSS and style sheets, then the extension is CSS. Uh, for web config file, the extension is .config. And also if you're using a sitemap, then the extension is sitemap, and for JavaScript files, it is .js. So they are the most common extensions, and there's a full description for each of them. And also here are the reserved folders for ASP.NET projects. Make sure to read them, get familiar with the description of each of them. And if you want to get introduced to ASP.NET Markup, here is the sample for ASP.NET Markup. It's very similar to HTML tags if you're already familiar with them, and can easily help you to get more familiar with them. But the thing is, when you compile your application, an ASP.NET handler convert these markups to HTML tags, just like this example that being converted to the other tag. So as you can see here, we have this button control here. The identification for this button is button 1, that later in our code behind section we can have access to this button with this ID. And we have to always mention run at server for our controls. And here's also the text value that has been we selected to be written on top of this button as click me text. So now if we can see it here, also it's really similar to the one we wrote here. The name is button 1, the value is click me, and the ID is also button 1. And if you are not familiar with HTML, I recommend you to download this HTML.pp6 PowerPoint presentation, which I somehow describe and come up with these HTML tags and describe them in order to students for the students to be more familiar with each of them. So try to download it and go through it once or twice and just get yourself more familiar with it if you're already not familiar with HTML. The knowledge of HTML can help you a lot in ASP.NET projects, but if you haven't worked with it earlier, don't worry, you still can learn so much about ASP.NET. And here is also the list of development tools that you can use to create ASP.NET projects. The most powerful IDE to work with ASP.NET is Microsoft Visual Studio, and in our course we're going to use that. I recommend you to install and use the Visual Studio on your computer to work with ASP.NET projects. If you want to get familiar with Microsoft Visual Studio, Microsoft Visual Studio is an integrated development environment or IDE from Microsoft. It is used to develop computer programs for Microsoft Windows, as well as websites, web applications, and web services. Visual Studio uses Microsoft software development platforms such as Windows API, Windows Forms, Windows Presentation Foundation, Windows Store, and Microsoft Silverlight. It can produce both native code and managed code. And here is also a way to get Visual Studio from your Metropolia student account. Make sure to follow these steps and download and install Microsoft Visual Studio on your computer. And here is also this file that I put in file section of this course that somehow is a step-by-step tutorial to install an instance of Visual Studio Ultimate 2013 on your computer. And to work with Visual Studio in Metropolia campuses, you can run VMware horizontal client and then connect with this Visual virtual machine and run Visual Studio Ultimate 2013. And to get familiar with Visual Studio environment, here is a screen shot of main window. When you open your application, there is a main menu, and then there's toolbox which you can find other server controls and other tools. And here is the part that you have to write your code. And this tool window, there are three modes. We have design mode, we have source mode, and a split, which is the combination of both design and source. And then we have this toolbar area here on top that you can compile and run your application with this icon by pressing it. And we have this solution explorer, which you can explore all of the files of your application, database explorer, and then properties. When you select some object or server control, then all of this its property is going to be listed here, and then you can easily modify it. So try by yourself and open Visual Studio and get yourself more familiar with it. We're gonna use it a lot in our applications and projects in the upcoming slides and content and material. And for the lab session, also you need to create your ASP.NET project and work with folders and try to add files to your project. Make sure to spend time with your application and try to be more familiar with these features and tools of Visual Studio. And here are also some links that you can go and try to learn about these titles if you want to expand your knowledge. And this was the whole material for this introduction part of this course. I hope you enjoyed it and learned the contents. And see you on the next part of the slides, which is the intermediate part of this course.